You've been lied to. Every war movie you've ever watched. Every History Channel documentary filmed in somebody's grandpa's barn. Every video game where you screamed, "Oh God, it's a tiger," while your Sherman exploded into a fireball. All of it? Hollywood horseshit. They told you the German Tiger was an unstoppable killing machine. They told you the Sherman was a death trap on tracks. A Ronson Lighter that burst into flames the second a German so much as looked at it funny. They made you believe that American tank crews were just speed bumps for the Wehrmacht's armored spearhead. Here's what they didn't tell you.
All day. Yeah,
we won,
thousands of them.
They lost. And today, I'm going to explain why, using the only metric that actually matters in war. Not which tank looks coolest, not which tank has the biggest gun, but which tank actually shows up to the fight, does the job, and brings the crew home alive. Buckle up. We're about to ruin a lot of German fanboys' entire week. Number 5, the Axis Comedy Hour. Let's start with the entries that make you wonder if Japan and Italy even wanted to win. The Japanese Type 97 Shiha. 15 tons of what I can only describe as optimism wrapped in sheet metal. Armor thickness? 1 inch on the front. That's 25 millimeters. I've seen thicker pizza boxes. The American 50 caliber machine gun went through these things like they were made of origami. The gun? A 57 millimeter pop gun that couldn't penetrate a Sherman from any angle. Japanese tank doctrine was designed to fight Chinese infantry in Manchuria, not American armor in the Pacific. So when Marines encountered these things on islands like Saipan, it wasn't a tank battle. It was target practice. Italy's M13 over 40? Even worse. 30 millimeters of frontal armor. That's the thickness of 3 nickels stacked together. I've seen stronger protection on a middle school locker. It was powered by a diesel engine that produced 125 horsepower. For comparison, a modern Honda Civic makes 180. This thing was slower than Italian bureaucracy and about as effective. Both nations tried to fight a modern mechanized war with cavalry thinking and pre-war technology. These aren't tanks. They're steel coffins for very confused men who were sent to fight Shermans with what essentially amounts to an armored golf cart. The Pacific and North African campaigns proved one thing. If you're going to build a tank, at least pretend you've heard of the concept of armor. Number 4, the Tiger, Germany's beautiful disaster. Now we get to the one you've been waiting for. The legend, the nightmare, the star of every World War II movie ever made. The Tiger? Let me be clear. The Tiger was terrifying. An 88 millimeter gun that could punch through a Sherman's frontal armor at 2,000 yards. Armor so thick that most Allied tanks couldn't penetrate it from the front. A psychological weapon that made Allied tank crews soil themselves when they heard one was in the area. Kill ratios? Impressive. One Tiger could theoretically take out 5, 6, 7 Shermans before going down. So why is it number 4? Because wars aren't fought on paper. They're fought in mud, snow, and reality. The Tiger weighed 60 tons. 60. That's heavier than most of the bridges in Europe. German engineers had to design special rail cars just to transport them. Cross a bridge? Good luck. Half the time, you'd collapse it and create your own roadblock. Fuel consumption? 1 gallon per mile. Not per kilometer, per mile. My F350 pickup gets better mileage, and that thing drinks premium like it's going out of style. A Tiger needed 5 times more fuel than a Sherman to cover the same distance. In a war where Germany was already starving for oil, this wasn't a tank. It was a strategic liability. And those overlapping road wheels? The ones that look so cool in photos? Absolute maintenance hell. Brilliant engineering in September. In a Russian winter, they'd pack with mud and freeze solid. You'd need blowtorches and 4 hours of work just to get the thing moving. Hope the Soviets are patient enough to let you warm up. Let's talk production. Germany built 1,347 Tigers during the entire war. 1,347. America built 50,000 Shermans. That's not a war. That's pest control. For every Tiger that made it to the battlefield, 3 were broken down by the side of the road. Operational readiness hovered around 60%. That means 4 out of 10 Tigers weren't fighting. They were waiting for parts that didn't exist, being cannibalized to keep their brothers running, or sitting abandoned because the crew ran out of fuel. The Tiger was a mechanical drama queen, temperamental, high maintenance, and only impressive when everything went exactly according to plan, which in war, it never does. A Tiger that's broken down beside the Autobahn isn't a tank. It's a roadside attraction, and Germany built a whole fleet of them. Terrifying? Absolutely. But terror doesn't win wars. Logistics does. Number 3, the Panther, the glass cannon. The Panther was supposed to be Germany's answer to the T-34. Sloped armor, a powerful 75mm gun, good speed, and on paper, the best balanced medium tank of the war. On paper. In reality, the Panther was what happens when you panic rush a prototype into production because your Führer is losing his mind in a bunker. Let's give credit where it's due. That sloped frontal armor? Gorgeous. 85 millimeters thick at an angle, could deflect almost anything the Allies threw at it from the front. The 75 millimeter gun had better penetration than the Sherman 75, and it could hit 40 miles per hour, making it one of the faster tanks in the war. Sounds perfect, right? Here's the problem. It had the side armor of a beer can. 40 millimeters on the sides? That's 1.6 inches. American tank destroyers figured this out real quick. Don't shoot it in the front where it's strong. Shoot it in the flank where it's basically wet cardboard. One M10 with a 3-inch gun could turn a Panther into modern art from the side. Then there's the mechanical nightmare. The Panther was rushed into service at Kursk in 1943, and it showed. Transmissions failed constantly. The final drive had a lifespan of 150 kilometers. That's 93 miles. I've had relationships last longer than that. Engine fires were so common that crews started calling it the Lighter. Ironic, considering that's what they accused the Sherman of being. At least the Sherman's fires came from getting shot. The Panther caught fire from its own incompetence. Fuel consumption wasn't Tiger-level insane, but it was still bad. And good luck finding spare parts when your entire production infrastructure is being bombed into the Stone Age by the 8th Air Force. The Panther was a glass cannon, beautiful, deadly, and fragile as your grandmother's china collection. It was the right tank for 1,946. Unfortunately for Germany, it arrived in 1943, half-baked and full of bugs. If you're going to rush something into production, maybe make sure it doesn't kill its own crew more often than the enemy does. Number 2, the T-34, the Soviet sledgehammer. The T-34 is a tank that demands respect. Not admiration, not love, but respect. The Soviets built 84,000 of them. 84,000. That number alone won the Eastern Front. When you're facing that kind of industrial output, it doesn't matter how good your tanks are. You're going to lose through sheer mathematics. Let's talk about what the T-34 got right. Sloped armor in 1940. That's genius. While everyone else was building vertical steel walls, Soviet engineers were designing deflection angles that made German gunners weep. A 76mm gun that could handle most German tanks early in the war, upgraded to an 85mm later. Wide tracks for Russian mud. A diesel engine that started in negative 40-degree weather when Tigers were frozen lawn ornaments. This thing was built for the Eastern Front, and it dominated there. The Germans were so impressed and terrified that they literally copied the design philosophy for the Panther. That's not tribute, that's industrial theft born from respect and fear. But here's what Americans need to understand about the T-34. The Soviets built a tank, not a crew compartment, a tank. The driver sits in a fetal position like he's waiting to be reborn. Or die. Usually die. Ergonomics? That's a Western luxury. Comfort? That's bourgeois nonsense. You sit where Stalin tells you to sit, and you're grateful for the opportunity. The commander had to load the gun, command the tank, and operate the radio. That's 3 jobs. Good luck doing any of them well. Visibility was atrocious. You got a periscope the size of a postage stamp and a prayer? Early models didn't even have radios. How do you coordinate an attack? You don't. You just drive toward the sound of explosions and hope your commissar doesn't shoot you for cowardice. Life expectancy for a T-34 crew in 1,941? 6 months. That's not a career. That's a death sentence with paperwork. The T-34 won the war on the Eastern Front through sheer brutality and numbers. It was effective. It was decisive. It was absolutely crucial to defeating Germany. But if you gave an American tanker a choice between climbing into a T-34 or a Sherman, he'd kiss that Sherman like it was Betty Grable and propose marriage on the spot. The T-34 saved the world. But it did it by grinding up Soviet tank crews like meat in a sausage factory. Stalin didn't care about crew survival. He cared about Berlin, and he got there on a mountain of Russian corpses. Respect the machine, but never forget the cost. Number 1, the M4 Sherman, America's unsung champion. And now we arrive at the tank everyone loves to hate, the Sherman. The Ronson Lighter, the Tommy Cooker, the death trap that Hollywood taught you was a helpless victim waiting to be executed by superior German engineering. Time to set the record straight. Let's kill the Ronson myth first, because I'm tired of hearing it. You know what a Ronson lighter was? A luxury 1,940-second cigarette lighter that advertised lights first time, every time. Some British tanker made a dark joke about Shermans brewing up, and 70 years later, you're still repeating it like it's gospel. Here's the truth. Early Shermans stored ammunition in dry sponsons on the sides of the hull. That's bad design. When a German shell penetrated, it could cook off the ammo. 60% of penetrated tanks caught fire. Unacceptable. So what did Detroit do? They fixed it. Wet stowage. Ammo racks, surrounded by water glycol jackets, moved to the floor of the tank. After this change in 1944, the brew-up rate dropped to 10 to 15%. Problem identified. Problem solved. Keep moving. Meanwhile, Panthers were still catching fire from their own engines. But let's talk about something Hollywood never shows you, because it's not sexy. The Sherman had a gyro-stabilized gun, the only Allied tank in the war with this technology. The only one. While Tiger crews had to stop, carefully aim, and fire, Sherman crews could shoot on the move. Not accurately enough to win a carnival game, but accurately enough to get rounds on target first. In a tank battle, the first shot doesn't have to kill. It just has to make the other guy panic. American tank doctrine trained crews to acquire and engage targets in 5 seconds. Germans needed 10. That's the difference between living and dying. Sherman gunners won the quick draw every single time. Let me tell you about something even less sexy than gunnery. Ergonomics. The Sherman was spacious. 5 guys could work without elbowing each other in the face. There was room to load the gun efficiently. Room to think. Room to not go completely insane after 8 hours inside a steel box. 3 escape hatches. 3 driver and co-driver hatches up front, 3 crew positions through the turret. When a Sherman got hit, the crew had options. Crew survival rate, 80%. Compare that to a T-34 where maybe 40% of the crew escaped. Or a Panther where you're trying to squeeze through a tiny hatch while the ammunition cooks off behind you. 75% of disabled Shermans were repaired and returned to service. 75%. You could fix it with a wrench and some Detroit attitude. Throw on a new track, patch the hole, send it back to the fight. Panthers needed to be sent back to Germany. Tigers needed to be abandoned and blown up. Now let's talk about the stat that actually won the war: production. America built 50,000 Shermans. 50,000. That's a Sherman rolling off the assembly line every 45 minutes, 24 hours a day, for 4 years straight. While you were sleeping, Detroit was building tanks. Operational readiness, 90%. 9 out of 10 Shermans woke up ready to fight every morning. Tigers, maybe 60% on a good day, if the stars aligned and the maintenance crew sacrificed a goat. You could fit a Sherman on a Liberty ship, you could drive it off a landing craft at Normandy, you could repair it in a field in France with parts from 3 other blown-up Shermans. It was designed for mass production, mass deployment, and mass warfare. The Germans over-engineered perfection. Americans engineered victory. And let's talk variants, because the Sherman was modular before modular was cool. DD Shermans with flotation screens for D-Day. Fireflies with British 17-pounder guns for tiger hunting. Jumbos with extra armor for breakthrough operations. Zippos with flamethrowers for bunkers. Dozers. Recovery vehicles. Mobile artillery. The Sherman was a platform, a foundation. You could build an entire armored force around it because it actually worked. Here's what it comes down to. The Sherman wasn't the best tank. It was the right tank. It wasn't designed to outduel a Tiger in some cinematic one-on-one showdown at dawn. It was designed to be everywhere the Tiger couldn't be. To cross oceans. To storm beaches. To drive across France while German tanks were waiting for fuel that never came. The Sherman brought boys home. And that's the only statistic that actually matters. German tanks were built for glory. American tanks were built for victory. Guess which one we're speaking English because of? History isn't written by the best tanks. It's written by the tanks that showed up. The Tiger was terrifying. The Panther was advanced. The T-34 was brutally effective. But the Sherman won the war. Not because it was the best tank in any one category, but because it was good enough in every category that mattered. Logistics beats heroics. Every single time. So here's my question for you. It's June 1944. You just got drafted. Uncle Sam gives you a choice. You can have a Tiger with a 50-50 chance it starts, and a fuel range measured in yards, or you can have a Sherman that'll get you from Normandy to Berlin and back home to Kansas. What do you choose? I'll take the boring tank that wins. Every single time. Hit that like button if you're tired of German propaganda masquerading as history, subscribe if you believe in Detroit steel over Ruhr Valley fantasies, and comment below, Tiger or Sherman? Choose wisely. Your fictional life depends on it.